It's a book collab! Hi everybody, welcome back to Project Happy Home. For those of you who are new here, I'm Tanya, a doctor, lawyer turned homeschooling mom of 3 kids ages 7, 4, and 2. Today I'm participating in an open collab hosted by Ingrid over at Mommy and Mia Chronicles. Make sure you check out her channel down below. And the collab is entitled All About Books. As you all know, I am a total bookworm and I read all the time, and it's really my #1 hobby. I know it sounds boring sometimes when people ask you your hobbies and you say, I read. But really, I that's what I do with my free time and what I prefer to do. So I was super excited to participate. I'll be looking down every now and then to get the questions from the collab, so please excuse me. One of the first questions of the collab is to name 3 of the books on your to-be-read list. And for me, it's these 3. I have hundreds of books on my to-be-read list, but these 3 happen to be sitting on my nightstand right now. The first one is Major Pettigrew's Last Stand, and it's a really sweet story. It's about a retired major, English major in a small village in the English countryside who develops an unlikely friendship with a Pakistani shopkeeper. They're both a widower and a widow, respectively, and they develop a friendship, and I think it develops into something more, though I'm not sure, though the cover would suggest that it does. And I just thought it was a sweet story to read. The next book on my to-be-read list is The Historian by Elizabeth Kostova. And it's basically a story exploring the Dracula myth and the descendants of Dracula, if there were any. And it's just a really interesting story about like Vlad the Impaler and the vampire lore and pulling it forward through the centuries to today, and I thought it was a really fresh way of approaching the topic. Vampires really haven't interested me that much, but I did very much enjoy Anne Rice's Interview with a Vampire series, and I like fantasy. I like it especially when it weaves in with historical fiction, which is my favorite genre, so I'm excited to read this one. This one is Mr. Rogers' How Families Grow. I love Fred Rogers. I loved, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Whenever I see an internet meme about something Mr. Rogers might have said, I fall in love with him all over again. I think he had such wonderful, soft, kind, honest, and true ideas about interpersonal relationships, and particularly with respect to children, how we should respect them and treat them with respect and dignity. And when you look through this book, you can tell that a lot of the peaceful parenting suggestions that are so popular among parenting experts today were already written about by Fred Rogers a long time ago. So I'm excited to read this one. So the next question in the collab is to name 3 books on your wish list. And I have literally hundreds of books in my Amazon wish list. I tend not to buy books from Amazon. I try not to. If I do, I try to buy them used or from thriftbooks.com. But usually what I'll do is I'll either get them from the library or a thrift store. One book I do want to read though is The Soul of an Octopus. And I've heard it's just a wonderful exploration into like an animal's mentality and an octopi? Octopi, I think, are very, very intelligent and are known to be incredibly smart. Like they can unscrew themselves from a jar. Many of them escape in aquariums in the sense that they leave their cage and they're found on the floor later. So I'm just interested in that kind of exploration. Another book on my wish list is the Lyrical and Critical Essays of Camus. And he's one of my favorite existential philosophers, so anything more that I can read from him, that's always good to me. Another book on my wish list is Word by Word, The Secret Life of Dictionaries. And I mean, I don't think I need to say anything more. I think between you and me, like you're watching this, so you obviously love books and I love books. And if you love books, you generally love words and how they come to be, their country of origin, their language of origin, their stems, their roots, the beauty of how a word comes to be. And all the intricacies of what goes into making a dictionary would be really interesting to find out. The next question is, which is your favorite genre? My favorite genre is historical fiction, without a doubt, and my least favorite genre is sci-fi. Though there have been some sci-fi books that I have loved, like Ender's Game. So I don't shy away from them completely, but I do find that I have less favorites in that genre than any other. What is the name of the last book that you read? The last book I read in its entirety is this book, Your Rainforest Mind, A Guide to the Well-Being of Gifted Adults and Youth. And this is one of those books I mentioned that I picked up at the C Homeschoolers Conference. This rocked my world. When I bought it, the person who I bought it from said, the first time I read this book, I cried. And I remember buying it and thinking, wow, I'm not gonna cry when I read this book. And I read it on the plane and I cried. I cried next to two perfect strangers like an idiot. Because as a gifted person and someone who grew up gifted, I didn't realize all the things that went along with giftedness that go beyond simply being smart. A lot of the emotional difficulties I had and just philosophical issues and psychological complexities of being gifted were unknown to me. And this was a real revelation, this book. So if you have a gifted child or gifted yourself or married to someone who's gifted, I definitely recommend going to the Gifted Homeschoolers Forum website and picking up a copy of this book. I think they also have an Amazon page. So it's called Your Rainforest Mind, and it is an amazing read. I would read aloud passages to my husband, who's also a gifted individual, and it made me understand so many more things about my son, and this concept of being twice exceptional, of having ADHD and giftedness, and just the challenges that brings and the emotional sensitivities at play there. Hi, you want to join me?
Hey.
What you doing?
I got a book. That's you.
I can't see you though. You want to stand up a little bit?
Yes.
Okay.
There's you and me.
There's me and you. Okay. Hello. Everybody's here. Okay. So the other question is, what is the name of the last? What is the name of? The next question is, what is the name of a book you are currently reading? I tend to read a bunch of books together, and one of the books that I am reading right now is Gilead, and Gilead is one of my favorite books ever. If you haven't heard of it, it's by Marilyn Robinson, and it's about a minister who is dying, and it's written almost like a letter to his son, or just a series of musings, almost like journal entries, and it is amazing. If you haven't heard of it or you haven't picked it up, I suggest it strongly. It's skyrocketed to my top 5 list.
Mommy, can you help me to stand up?
There you go. Another book that I'm currently reading is by Emily Cook, who has a YouTube channel over at ARG Schooling. She's also the author of the Build Your Library curriculum, which we will be exploring next year. This is a literary education, and it's a secular approach to Charlotte Mason. And so far, it's been really amazing. She really breaks down Charlotte Mason for a modern homeschooler. Whether or not you're secular, I don't think it matters, because she really brings it to our daily lives. Part of the thing that I think people can find hard about Charlotte Mason is random statements like that your kids should spend 7 hours outside a day. In our modern day world, that might not be possible, but certainly reading aloud to your kids is possible, and she really does break down how that would be possible. I'll be doing a review on this book and a giveaway. When I met Emily at the C Homeschoolers Conference, I actually picked up another autographed copy. So I'll be giving that away soon, so stay tuned for future videos just so you don't miss it. Another book that I'm currently reading is by Joan Didion. It's called The Year of Magical Thinking. Joan Didion lost her husband and her daughter within a very short span of time. So if you're depressed, you should probably shy away from this book for now. But it's an incredibly honest exploration of grief and what it means to love and what it means to lose the people dearest to you in a short space of time. So I find it remarkably well written and heart-wrenching, and just a great memoir of sorts.
Can I color?
Yes, you can go to the other side and color it, but I can't help you yet, okay? The next question is to choose a character you would be in a book you have read and why. There's so many characters that I would choose to be. There was a book called Magic Flutes by Ava Ibbotson, and I remember being charmed by that book and thinking what it would be like to be that character a lot. It's a historical fiction. And there's so many other books where I would imagine being the character, but I don't know that I've ever dreamt about being one character in particular.
Mommy,
Yes, sweet girl.
can you put me up in the chair?
No, baby, I can't, but you can get your daddy to put you up in the chair. Go get daddy. Daddy will put you in the chair, okay?
Daddy?
Yes, your daddy.
Yeah.
Go.
And there's another color. Oopsie.
Which book have you read that felt like forever for you to finish? I read really fast. I don't think there was a book that I've read that seemed to take forever. I didn't really enjoy War and Peace by Tolstoy, and that was a giant book. But, I mean, I read it, you know. There are some books that people complain about being really boring and pedantic, like Crime and Punishment, which happens to be one of my favorite books ever. So, I don't know. I think sometimes when it gets really difficult in a way, like I just sort of push through and read even faster. Sometimes I wish I could read a little bit slower because you get to appreciate the richness of the text and the words and the vocab a little more. And so sometimes I deliberately force myself to slow down, but it's also a reason why I read books over and over again. What do you do with your books once you've read them? I generally tend to keep them. If I hated it, I kind of automatically put it into a bin in the garage for giving away, but usually I do keep them. I've never sold my books, but I think I should start trying. I do sell homeschool curricula, but I haven't really sold my fiction or anything. I just generally tend to donate them. Partly because I feel like it's pay it forward, because I find so many wonderful books at the thrift store that I feel like this way other people get a chance to find good books too. How many books do you read at a time? I read a lot of books at a time. I used to be a person who just read one book at a time, and then I had children and realized that I might never again have the time or level of energy to just sit down and read a book from start to finish in one evening. So now I generally have like a light read going, a historical fiction, a more heavy kind of read going, some nonfiction books going, often in the parenting category, some books just about history, and just random books. I keep a giant basket next to me when I sleep, and it's actually on my nightstand, and there's also a giant stack, and then there's another giant basket. So there's 3 giant piles of books that I'm currently reading in my bedroom. How do you feel about lending out your books? I feel totally fine lending out books that I don't need to get back. And I do not feel good lending out books that I absolutely need to get back. Because I know people, and I know readers especially, and if you're a reader, you tend to have a lot of books, and it's really easy to lose somebody else's book in your pile of books. So without any malice, people can often just forget completely that they have one of your books and that they need to return it. And then 2, I don't like lending out my favorite books because sometimes they come back damaged, and that bothers me. So I'd much rather just recommend a book to somebody or buy it for them, honestly. There's something about my own book, my first read, the one I held a thumb through and dog-eared, that is special to me. Which book have you read more than once? Crime and Punishment. I've read Crime and Punishment at least 5 times. And there's random other light reads that I have read more than once. And Eva Ibbidson's Magic Flutes I've read more than once because it just seemed, something about that story just charmed me for no apparent reason. Yeah, in general, I won't read entire books more than once unless they are so deeply moving to me, which Crime and Punishment definitely was. And then poetic works I read more than once, obviously. I read them over and over again, like Rumi or Mary Oliver or Neruda. Do you bookmark or dog-ear your pages? I dog-ear my pages, and I wish I had the self-discipline to bookmark, but I don't. And I honestly don't feel like dog-earing does anything to the books. I mean, it's not like you're refolding that flap over and over again. You fold it once and then you move on and then fold another page, right? So it's okay. But I do tell my kids not to do that, so I don't know. And I would never dog-ear like a picture book, but you read that at one go. So I don't know. I think that bookmarks are better, but I dog-ear. So there's that. What is your favorite quote from a book that you have read? I have way too many of these to pick one. So I just flipped through my journal where I do write quotes, and one of the ones that popped up was from a book by Ursula Le Guin, who's one of my favorite authors, In the Left Hand of Darkness. And it says, "It is good to have an end to journey towards, but it is the journey that matters in the end." And I think you can pretty much sum up all of life in that statement. It's fine to have an end to journey towards, but it is the journey that matters. As homeschool moms, I know we can all relate to that because it is the day-to-day, it's the little things in our lives that matter, not so much our grand, highfalutin goals. Besides the cover of the book, what else draws you to choose a specific book to read? I would say that there's lots of reviews that I do read, everything from reviews in O Magazine to New York Times book reviews to book lists. I do peruse them. I don't really use them as a guide so much as something to spark my interest. So if someone has summarized a book that is where my interests lie, then I might go look it up at the library and see if I'm interested enough to pick it up and take it home. The next question is really interesting. If you could, what changes would you make to a book you've read, like the character or the titles or anything like that? I don't know that I would make any changes. I think books are really personal to the author and then to the reader. I think sometimes the struggle you have with an ending or a character brings more to that story, to the experience of reading that story. When you hate a character or when you hate an ending, sometimes I think that makes the book more meaningful for you, like brings more introspection to you for why you have that intense reaction. And if it had all worked out perfectly the way you wanted it to, maybe you wouldn't have learned so much from that book or felt so many emotions from that book. It would have just kind of rolled along like a light read, like romance novels, which are lovely in their own way, because who doesn't love a happy ending? But usually the endings we would change are things where, you know, a child dies or a marriage dissolves or someone good suffers horribly for no reason. But I wouldn't change any of that in those books because I think there are so many lessons to be learned there, and life isn't fair. It certainly isn't fair. So it's somewhat comforting to see like the virtual experience of a character as they go through that. If you ever write a book, what will the title be? I hope one day I do write a book, and I don't know what the title will be. I have a couple titles in mind, but I probably don't want to give them away just yet. I hope you enjoyed this video, you guys. This is an open collab, so if you'd like to answer any of these questions, please do, and post your video and add it to the playlist. I'll link the playlist down below. I'm so interested to see other people's answers. I'm a little late to the game, so hopefully somebody will watch this video, but thank you so much, Ingrid, for inviting me to the collaboration. I really enjoyed it, and I hope you guys have a great day. Don't forget to subscribe. Another book I'm currently reading is by Joan Didion. It's The Year of Magical Thinking. This is a book that you should not read if you are incredibly depressed or in a very sad frame of mind, because it will make you even sadder.